Thank you for joining us. We're looking yet again at another page live. I have in front of me a site submitted by Paul in the UK. It is for Rosetta Stone. Now, we could take this site and we could focus on several aspects. They're doing something interesting at the top that is presenting three different versions of a product, and you'll notice that they are weighting one of those, which is, by the way, the right thing to do. We could also focus on the nature of the calls to action. We could talk about iPath, but I want to focus on one particular area that I think will help us most, because not only this site, but the site that you may be responsible for, and many of the sites that we see across the net continue to make what I think is a grave mistake that often mitigates our conversion rate. Indeed, it's a problem on the internet that what most people call a best practice is really just pooled ignorance. We copy what the other guy does, but we don't actually know what the performance of his site is. And so simply because we have some sense they may know more than we do, we follow them. And often, more than not, it's the blind leading the blind. I'm not saying that to be harsh on this particular site, but there's a problem here, and I'll tell you what it is. The presentation on this site, if you look closely, as I start to scroll through it, does not have a single message flowing in the same way that a group of thoughts flow, and the same sequence that would lead to what we would want to be an inevitable conclusion. This is not a message being communicated in the most effective way with the elimination of all other wasted activities, but indeed, it's like a continuous series of boxes and barriers. I think Apple's been a very effective company. Many of us go too far in copying Apple. We want an Apple brand when all brands will not be loved, even if we love Apple. And much of what Apple's done that is successful cannot be counted on the web. You might differ with that, but how many of you have people waiting 3 days in advance of a product release in line for blocks, if not miles, in front of a store? If we were to copy what Apple does in the external and do the same sort of thinking, then many of us would demand that people stand in line for blocks before we would release a product. That will not work in the retail world offline, and it will not work for you to copy everything Apple does online. Indeed, I've seen this idea of beautiful glossy images sort of packaged in one box after another, flowing on a long page, as if that's the new ipso de facto standard for page design. But in experiment after experiment, and we've ran more than 20,000 path tests, we have discovered that if you want to see your page in a perspective that will produce the highest conversion rate, you've got to think of it as a conversation, and in particular, a message. And in particular, it needs to be a message focused around the center, the epicenter of your value proposition. So let's start at the top. We have a headline, Learn French Like a Native. Not particularly powerful. There's no sense of exclusivity there. The goal of a headline is to capture attention, convert it to interest. Then it says select your new language, and the default is French. That's good. Apparently that's connected to what's happening in the search engine. But then all I see next is download complete course, advanced course. Now, those product points may be valuable, particularly I would imagine, because they would perhaps be thinking that some people are coming back to this site and they need to make a choice based on the fact that they're already ready to purchase. And if they're not ready to purchase, maybe there's content beneath this. But it says designed for real-world language success. And then it has something here that might be a tutorial, but it's not actually clear. And is it a video? And are those buttons interactive at the top? Or are those just images? And once you get through that, it says select product. But I thought I selected product up here. What's the difference between this select product down here and the select product at the top? And if that's not enough, I start seeing people talking to me. When I see those people talk, please understand these are 4 simultaneous conversations. 4 columns are the same as 4 people talking at the same time. I don't know on which to focus. And indeed, that's a problem with a page like this, because if you get through the other barriers, which by the way, those barriers are exacerbated by the lines across there, and you get through this section, you hit another thing that says more reviews and then 20 years of using insights gained through experience. What does that mean? What kind of insights? What is that headline talking about? There's a city in the background. I don't understand what that's about. And then I have something that might be very rich at the top if it was interpreted in a way that helped me understand why it is that this particular product is the most effective language learning product in the world. Way down here it says 8,000 plus corporations and NGOs, 9,000 plus public nonprofit organizations, 20,000 plus educational institutions. What does that mean? We assume that people are making the connection instantly, but people are barely looking at this page. Only someone deeply concerned, and that's a tiny segment of your audience. Most people are still trying to make sense. They do it fast, slide up, slide down, and there's no single throughput line. We don't talk like this, and we don't grasp, comprehend, understand like this. And it just is one idea stacked upon another, hoping, I suppose, that one of them will get through to a potential market. We need to understand, if we're going to optimize a page like this, what is the first thing someone needs to consider? What is the second thing? What is the third thing? And present it in that order. And then use the sides of the page to provide supporting information. Never the core message, but supporting information. This page could have critical statements like this in the margins. Underneath it is facts instead, and those are broken into more boxes. And then there's another section. Wants to start learning French now? What's the difference between this section and the top section? Listen, you do not make an effective web page by building a smorgasbord and then slinging it at people. You've got to create a carefully tuned message calibrated with the thought sequence of the individual. If we redesign this page, we would get the essential messaging near the top with a strong headline, a strong subheader. We would communicate with a full few bullet points, and then we would sort of expand on that message with strong copy that helped me understand the answer to a single all-important question. Why Rosetta Stone? In truth, I can look at this page and barely realize I'm on a Rosetta Stone site. Why? Because this tiny little logo up at the top of the page is not being seen by anyone. That computer image is so big it draws my eyes there, and then the boxes across the page continue to capture my attention, and I could look at this page and never realize I was even talking about Rosetta Stone until I get halfway down. That's a mistake. And while there are some things being done well here, you can take this very same page and optimize it so that it communicates a single, reinforced, powerful message, and you can get stronger results.